Hi everybody at home, and welcome to another Keep, Begin, Detach. Hold on. So as we wait for some attendees, I'm gonna open the event. So today is Thursday, March 7th, and we are at E.M. Wolfman, a local bookstore in downtown Oakland, California. So welcome. Some fun facts about this event. I do this event roughly 6 times a year. I did it like 6 times last year, and that was the first year. And I had an event earlier this year based on Emily Dickinson. So today we're going to talk about Georgia O'Keeffe. And so meanwhile, I want you to consider getting yourself a drink and a piece of paper or 2 or more and a pen. I would like to do a little writing exercise later in this event, so stay tuned for using those objects. So grab yourself a pen and paper, and I'll see you soon about that. Fun fact, some people said they were going to come, but I didn't press it. I thought it would be okay to have a very small group. And so here I am talking to you. So you can appreciate the zine I made. And for those of you at home, if you want a copy of this sent to you, let me know. And so the nature of Georgia O'Keeffe, she was photographed a lot. So I think it's important to mention that she went to art school, and then in New York she got involved in art world via an art photographer named Alfred Stieglitz, and they got involved before he was still married to his wife at the time, and so also he was much older, so it was a bit scandalous, but nonetheless they inspired each other greatly. But anyway, some of these photographs are by Stieglitz, and some of them are by other people. I think that it's very interesting when I write about it, where she sought out photographers to take her photo to kind of redefine herself to herself through another person's lens that wasn't this guy that she was in a very intense relationship with. But, I'm gonna go right ahead and recite this article I found, wrote by Maria Popov, about this book that I'm gonna show you. Anyways, so this book I'm gonna show you is called Art and Letters, and it has Georgia O'Keeffe's art and letters she wrote And so funny thing about history is that they dig up your letters, they find your letters through a lot of different ways. But yeah, I think that it's a very interesting exercise to write letters, because sometimes they are the only thing left of your writing, or not the only thing left, but yeah, it's definitely a document to look at that reflects your ideas. Anyways, I'm just going to go ahead and read this. Most revelatory insights on art and the creative experience were shaped in a series of letters to writer Sherwood Anderson, as written in this blog post by Maria Popov. Georgia O'Keeffe and Anderson continue their correspondence. In another letter sent a month later, she defies her self-professed distaste for telling herself to people, instead divulging with the exhilarating intensity of expression that both her art and her letters to loved ones emanate a magnificent glimpse into her inner life and creative spirit. She considers the role of form in art and experience from which art stems. I feel that a real living form is the result of the individual's effort to create the living thing out of the adventure of his spirit into the unknown. Where it has experienced something, felt something, it has not understood, and from that experience comes the desire to make the unknown known. By unknown, I mean the thing that means so much to the person that wants to put it down, clarify something he feels but does not clearly understand. Sometimes he partially knows why, sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes it is all working in the dark, but a working that must be done. Making the unknown known in terms of one's medium is all absorbing. If you stop to think of the form as form, you are lost. The artist's form must be inevitable. You mustn't even think if you won't succeed. Whether you succeed or not is irrelevant. There is no such thing. Making your unknown known is the important thing, and keeping the unknown always beyond you. Catching, crystallizing your simpler, clearer version of life, only to see it turn stale compared to what you vaguely feel ahead. That you must always keep working to grasp. The form must take care of itself if you can keep your vision clear. In a remark of extraordinary humility and wisdom, especially in the hindsight of both O'Keeffe's present status in the canon of art and Anderson's in that of literature, she considers the feebleness of any present metric of success against a creator's ultimate significance for posterity. You and I don't know whether our vision is clear in relation to our time or not. No matter what failure or success we may have, we will not know. But we can keep our integrity according to our own sense of balance with the world, and that creates our form. In a sentiment that calls to mind Maurice Sendak famous dissent with a common classification of his work. I don't write for children, I write, and somebody says that's for children. What others have called form has nothing to do with our form. I want to create my own, and I can't do anything else. If I stop to think of what others, authorities, or the public, or anyone would say of my form, I'd not be able to do anything. I can never show what I am working on without being stopped. Whether it is liked or disliked, I'm affected in the same way, sort of paralyzed. I'm gonna show you the book that I got. I think it's really beautiful because the productions of the paintings are really big. Oh, yes. Here, we're gonna move this slightly. There you go, or you can read along with me. Let me get you closer here. I got a squeaky chair. Okay. It's a picture of Ghost Ranch in 1981. You see how they have the little stone steps around the sagebrush. And then the traditional adobe style construction with the ladder going to the roof. Very fun, yeah. This one is called Special Number 2 is what it's called. 1915. I like this one. It's got this little stone resting in this kind of fountain shape. I read that Georgia O'Keeffe would sign the back of her works with her initials, and if she thought it was really good, she would put a star and then her initials in it. And if it wasn't up to her idea of greatness, she would just put her initials on the back or sign it. I like this one. So juicy. I'm going to read more in a second, but I think these are really powerful. These ones aren't as popular as the flowers that she's most known for, but still, you can appreciate her sense of depth here. And transcendental vantage point concepts, I guess. It's just like, it's a feeling that's very exalted and, as the book says, irreducible. That one's juicy. It's got these sweet little balls going up here and there. I like this one where there's just these little rips of white. Oh, that. Look at the sky. It's full of like eggs. Just something, okay? Okay. This one is to Paul Strand. Sunday morning, a little breeze, cool feeling air, very hot sun. Such a nice, quiet feeling morning. Strips of green, blue-green, pale, hazy, almost unbelievably beautiful. Out of my window, it startled me when I first saw it. It isn't often hazy here. I've been to breakfast, brought it to my sister, went for the mail, had a ride, got your package, The Little Prince. It's 11 o'clock. I wish you could see the nice color out of my window. The Little Prince. I looked at them for a long time, moved around, did other things, and came back to them, picked them up again and again, and found myself unconsciously looking off into space every time before I put them down. I see. It's almost as though you are sitting by me, silent, yet telling me so many things. I want just to reach my hand out to you and let you hold it. Can you understand that? It's different from telling you in words what they say to me. In a way, it's much more real. Maybe that's why I want to touch people so often. It's only another way of talking. You see, when I saw the large prints, they made me see you better. What was in the prints must be in you. Then it was a marvelous discovery. That could be in anyone now. Feeling more definitely what is in you, what you are, Your songs that I see here are sad and very wonderful music. Quieting music of the man I found, a real living human being. And the man I found in the big prints. You would not be who you are to me at all if I had not seen the part of you that is in the big prints. These little ones are merely songs that the man I have come to know is singing. Oh, hello. Welcome.
Yeah.
Cool. That's happening right
Oh my gosh, come on in. Oh, it's okay. I was just reading a letter and I'm on Facebook Live, so if you don't want to be in it, there's like a zone. But yeah, there you go.
What's in it?
Yeah, now you're immortalized forever. I think that a lot about live events where it's just like you can't take it back. You know what I mean? Because it's just like it's out there. If somebody might have seen it, you can't delete what they've seen.
Cool.
But yeah, let me show you around. I got this zine for you and for any attendee. And I've already been through a little bit of it. They're all just pictures, except one article about this book that I am reading. And so this article is just excerpts of letters that Georgia O'Keeffe wrote, talking about the form of painting. But yeah, fun fact, I didn't have a ride here and I didn't want to like pay $9 to get my projector over here. But if you want, you can come over after this event and we can watch some VHSs. I don't know how much time you have.
My evening's pretty much open.
What?
My evening's pretty much open.
Oh, okay. I thought the words much open was trouble, and I was like, your evening's pretty much trouble, and I was just like,
Yeah. Evenings are. Mornings are worse.
I think mornings are my best times because everything's fresh and nothing bad's happened. Like by this time, like a lot of stuff has already run through my mind about things, and it's just like already experienced so much anxiety, you know, like I have to write off the rest of the day. It's like I'm not gonna think any better than I did at 9 a.m. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and read another letter, and we might close up this event at like 7:10, depending on if other people show up. Because then I can like do like a walking tour where I can tell you more about Georgia O'Keeffe, but then it's like on my way to my house, and then I can show you this amazing animation VHS I have. Oh my gosh, it's incredible because it's one of those mixtapes where they like put together like animations from the 30s, and they have like this great list, and I've never seen any of them. And I don't know if you do drugs, but I have some.
I don't know if, I don't think either of us were alive in the 30s.
I was around in some capacity.
Oh, I wasn't.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. I don't know if you believe me, but I was just like, yeah. Okay, let's listen to this. I think it's always great having some reading to do, and she's very fine. Okay, so this is to Elizabeth Stiglitz, and it was in 1918 in Canyon, Texas. Your letters are nice. No, nice isn't the word. They are wonderful. It would be great if you were here to talk to. Would you get up and leave the stupid, maddening sort of folks? There's really no place to go, or would you stay and fight it out? Really nothing to do but stay. Nothing really makes me move yet. You will laugh if I tell you what the last piece of excitement is over. It seems to be growing as the days go by. And it's really so funny. Some Christmas cards at the drugstore that I asked the man not to sell. It's so funny. I have to laugh every time I think of it. But it seems this whole town is talking about me. Not patriotic. Once had a Statue of Liberty on it. One had a Statue of Liberty on it, and a verse that ended with something to the effect that we wanted to wipe Germany off the map. I said it was utterly incongruous and pro-German propaganda. The others, some Statue of Liberty, and a verse with something about hating the Kaiser, both entirely against what they all profess to believe as the principle of Christianity, and certainly not in keeping with any kind of Christmas spirit I ever heard of. The good Christians are up in arms. It happened about 3 weeks ago, and the gossip is beginning to have a great flavor. So fine that it's coming back to me, and I was perfectly unconscious for a time. It was just that I didn't want the students to buy cards like that. I never dreamed of folks talking. I don't care what they say about me, but it's amazing to see what's in their heads. That's what riles me so. I've sat here for a time, a dog barking, the night very still, a train way off, rumbling and humming. I've heard it a long time. I don't know whether it is coming or going. I guess it's coming. I don't seem to have anything else to say, except the only thing I had to say even in the beginning, and haven't said it yet. It is simply that it looks as though the war is going to last a long time, and I don't see how I'm going to be able to stand folks. It shows them up so queerly and rottenly, so pitifully and disgustingly. Sunday night, no Monday morning. When I turned out the light and lay down last night, I saw a star out the window, laughed and slept. I wonder if the star was there before and I couldn't see it. I think this stuff is super weird because this collection of letters and paintings was put together by someone that knew Georgia, and it's like not all of it is about or much of it is about art and stuff. It's just kind of like everyday things, but there's something really special about it because it was like over 100 years ago, and people were still kind of mundane back then too. But yeah, anyways, you want to look at some of the colors? Here, I'll give that to you.
Always like to see.
Yeah, so go ahead and flip through that. Yeah, it's a treat. And I'll play a little music and talk more about Georgia O'Keeffe. So, Georgia O'Keeffe is really cool. I read in one of her letters that she once went to New York and got all made up by a department store. And she went home and looked at herself in the mirror and wiped it all off. She told herself she would never do that again. There's something I like about women in history that don't wear makeup. I think it says something about how we don't need to make ourselves attractive in these superficial ways that highlight parts of our bodies that make us seem more alert or more alive. But sometimes I do dress up, so it's kind of like, the power of making your own choices and deciding when the context feels right for you to do something you wouldn't normally do. But yeah, it's interesting. They didn't really talk too much about how, in my research, about how Georgia O'Keeffe was like a daring lady for wanting to make art history. I don't think people really know what they're doing at the time. It just kind of happens. Then you can look back on saying how influential your art was and how successful you've been. But in the middle of it, it just seems like success, but not the same kind of culture-breaking, world-shattering success that makes you so popular. But even then, Georgia O'Keeffe is a famous American painter, but not necessarily world-renowned. I don't have a lot of international friends. I can't really speak to if they know about Georgia O'Keeffe or not and how far her influence goes. But what's pretty interesting about Georgia O'Keeffe is that her work is often described as environmental portraiture, but it's also described as something between modern art and realist art, or something like that, where it's like, it's definitely representational, but sometimes it's definitely not. And so, yeah, when I read about her work, they're saying how she would go through like phases and just do like a lot in one style and then switch it up and do a lot in another style. And I was like, that makes sense to me. It's kind of how I work. But yeah, I was surprised by those two, where it's like in this book with the prints, there's a bunch of like typical Georgia O'Keeffe's with like long brush strokes and soft pastels blending into each other. But then there's a spread where there's 2 fruit baskets, and it's just kind of like nice grapes, very round, but very like zoomed out, like in comparison to the close-ups of the petals and the crevices of edges coming together to see just like globular, recognizable grapes. Artists can do whatever they want. If they want to. Alright, so everyone who's been playing along at home, now is the time to get out your pieces of paper and your pens. You probably only need 1 pen if you're just one person. And so, on that piece of paper, I want you to do a little free write. And before you start, let me tell you about what I think is a good exercise, since we're thinking about Georgia O'Keeffe right now. I would like to encourage you to do a free write about an environment that you like. Might be a favorite place, might be an inspiring place, or a strange place, or a place that you think just you want to hang out in your mind for a while. So with that, you can go ahead and begin your free write, and I'll stop you in about 3 minutes, and I'll coach you as you start, you know, like I'll keep saying stuff, but go ahead and write. So in this environment of yours, what is the weather like? What is the sky doing? In your environment, what are you doing? Are you engaging with any of the elements, or just taking it all in? If so, what are you thinking about? yours? Is the ground squishy, soft, hard, dry? Is there water nearby? This environment of yours, how would you want to capture this moment? Maybe in a painting or a sculpture or a song. And you're free, right? Maybe write about doing that too. We're wrapping up our writing. Think about your environment and saying goodbye for now. Oh, hello. Are you here for the event?
Yeah.
Perfect. Come on in.
Hi.
I'm gonna get you another chair.
I can
Hold
scoot
on.
over. Hello.
Thank you.
There you are. Yeah. Take a seat.
All right.
Alright. And I'm doing a little live Facebook event, so it's just a heads up of having an audience at home. But here, this is for you. Do you want to sit down?
Yeah.
Wait, nice picture.
So yeah, welcome to Keep Begin Detach. I am your host, Kat Countess. And so the nature of these events is every couple of months I like to pick an artist that to be inspired by. And it's part of my ongoing curiosity about the past and kind of refueling my sense of who I am and who I want to model myself after. And so last month was Emily Dickinson. Well, it was a couple months ago actually, in January. And that was fabulous. And then today, it's all about Georgia O'Keeffe. Yeah. So you kind of missed the bio part. But
I thought maybe we could.
it's okay. I can still tell you a little bit about her.
Synopsis.
Yeah. So I kind of read the Cliff's Notes, so you probably know more than I do. But
I don't know much
here's the
about
fun part. Yeah, she was like a New England type lady, but then moved to New York for art school, and then studied there and practiced art and met a bunch of peeps. But one of the most notable is Alfred Stieglitz, the art photographer, and while he was still married, they began to have a relationship. And then, he got divorced, and then they got married. But it was a passionate affair, but also full of woe in the sense that he was a very demanding personality, and when you date somebody like that, it becomes your identity sometimes. And so, she saw photographs of herself through his lens, and there's a certain kind of feeling you can get from seeing somebody else using your likeness or your subjectivity in art. And so I thought about that as I was reading that, but that's very relatable. Because then, after they broke up, she's like, I'm gonna get other people to photograph me, so it's not just this one guy defining myself to myself. I thought that was really powerful. But that's why I include all these photographs of herself, because there's a certain kind of nature of when an artist is photographed, they actually have very little power over how it gets done. And so for somebody very visual to surrender themselves to someone else's aesthetic and someone else's medium, I thought that was just interesting how especially women get known in art, where it's sometimes their path to getting known is as a subject and not necessarily as a creator, at least at first. But sometimes there's always that sense about it. Like Patti Smith, she was photographed by Robert Mapplethorpe, and there's a great sense of being familiar with her first as just a subject and not as a musician. And I think that happens a lot with female artists of the past, is that they often get famous with some help from their romantic partners that are male and more popular and more legitimate for whatever that is. And it's definitely a political thing to think about, where it's just it's hard not to do events about these women without talking about the men that are more famous that are associated with them. Although I didn't come in that too much with Emily Dickinson, which I thought was kind of cool. But she's kind of a famous recluse.
You got to talk about her mom, which was cool.
Oh yeah. So it's
That stuck with me. The Emily night was great. Good.
yeah. But anyways,
I forgot that she was married to that wonderful photographer. What a trippy guy, Alfred Stieglitz. I didn't know she was married.
but
Go ahead, yeah.
Well, mostly she's also famous for leaving the art scene in New York and going to the Southwest, where she lived on that ghost ranch. And there's a lot of great photos. I was talking to one of my friends the other night about how he went to Ghost Ranch for a wedding. I thought that was really cool. It's still a place that people can go visit and stuff. There's something really historically powerful about that place.
That area is so trippy.
It's beautiful. But it was interesting because they also mentioned that in her adult life she only wore black or white.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing because maybe they talk about that with men, but I've only been really researching women. But Emily Dickinson had that thing too, where she wore all white towards the end of her life. And so maybe it's just part of the tendency of historians to like make notes of their aesthetics and fashion, or maybe it's just very notable. It's just like this extra element that gets reported on for women that is just kind of like maybe sexist. Maybe it's that same thing where it's like women always get asked like who they're wearing on the red carpet, and it's just a different like frame of reference. And so, but yeah, also they talk about how Georgia O'Keeffe was really inspired by Chinese and Japanese aesthetics and philosophy towards the end of her life. Like in some of the photographs of her, you can see her wearing a very modern kimono style attire. And I didn't really pick up too much on that other than that brief generalization about her influences. And I'm curious if there was like more religious components to that, or if it was simply kind of just the Zen nature of being out in some place so sparse. But yeah, to add my own interest, it's really curious that these women that I've been researching tend to have like a slight leaning towards the East, except for Emily Dickinson. But yeah, like Laurie Anderson and Patti Smith and Yoko Ono were all Buddhists. And so, I mean, maybe it's just my own personal taste where it's just like, I find these people really interesting and they just happen to be Buddhists. But maybe there is this extra thing about being like an intellectual in America where you have these different influences, and especially if you're like female, where there's a certain kind of oppression that makes you want to like seek other cultures out that are a little less, I guess, like powerful white man centric. I don't know how to say, like Christianity definitely has some kind of like masculinity going on that seems like, you know, there might be another way to think about the world and place in heaven that seems a little less patriarchal, but also on earth too. But yeah, I also wanted to talk about how Georgia O'Keeffe went to Hawaii, and it's like one of the essays I found written about it with her letters interwoven, and I thought it was really special because I'm from Hawaii, and so it was really nice hearing her appreciate the elements of nature that are so present in a lush environment like that. The flowers and the waterfalls and the mountain ridges and the sky. Georgia O'Keeffe was really into the sky, and there's some pieces that are like really stunning, that they're really big, and I think there's this one that a lot of people know where it's just like the sky above the clouds, and the clouds look like these flat stepping stones. And I'm always enchanted by that because yeah, I feel like I see it at the San Francisco MoMA. I think it's there. But honestly, I mean, I've definitely seen it somewhere, and it might just be like a really good replication. I don't even know, but it's funny how you like question your memories and be like, did I just dream that I like go by it and don't really know it? But it's very familiar to me when I see it. Like I saw it in that book with her prints and letters. I was just like, this one. Yes,
It makes sense that that's where the flowers would have come from. Those amazing flowers, that would be Hawaii. I didn't know that.
Well, not all are flowers, to be sure, but there's definitely some great bird of paradise she's painted that was from that time that she was there.
But there's the cactus flowers too, though, down in the southwest.
Oh yeah.
But so she went to Hawaii and lived for a while?
I think it was just a beautiful
visit.
sojourn.
Sojourn, yeah.
Yeah, but I find it really amusing that it's just like I was just, you know, whenever somebody like writes about your hometown, it's just kind of like shout out, and it's just kind of like being connected in this way. Because I didn't find like a ton of other connections with her, and I mean, I'm a painter, but like her approach is different than mine. But there's still like a very similar quality to like the ethereal transcendence that she describes in her work that I relate to, where it's like these petals are idealized, and they're not like decaying or withered. They're like vibrant and like mind flowers. It's like the thing that you would imagine, and they're like living.
Yeah.
But yeah. Do y'all have any experiences with Georgia O'Keeffe's work that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I've always always admired her stuff, and what you're saying about Stieglitz, I think is really curious, because I think also that she really hated the city, that it was really, you know, killing her spirit, and that he didn't have that same thing. So I think when she took off, I don't think that he had too much to do with.
Oh,
Did you find out?
I have some insight about that.
Okay.
So, Stieglitz was somewhat older than Georgia O'Keeffe, and sometimes Georgia O'Keeffe would like model nude for Stieglitz, and then there was one photo that was like captioned where it's like she did this after this other woman modeled nude for him.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bit of like other like younger competition afoot that ultimately like won out as their relation waned. This other relationship with this other woman blossomed, and yeah, I mean, not to like, I don't know like her life obviously, but there was this one part in this book that describes specifically how she wanted to get away from that feeling that of being rebuffed, or something more than that, but definitely like redefining herself in the desert. But this was just one book, so you know how history. It's like I read it and I was just like, this is juicy. The sense of like wanting to get away from who you were, like defined by your relationships. I thought that was very relatable. Because yeah, you can like have a different way of life in a different place, and then it's just like very liberating to not be reminded of this person in your town.
Yeah.
I think then, and didn't in her later life, she had a lover who was quite very different from Stieglitz, right? Who was like, lived there, they lived together, and I think, wasn't an artist. I think he really different. I've just seen a wonderful picture of her looking back at him. You know, that was full of kind of admiration and, you know, kind of a sense of closeness. I thought that, you know, she continued, I think, that path of finding more what suited her. And about, I think what you're saying is so interesting about the, you know, being objectified in the photography and seeing herself through his pictures. I think it's really interesting. Because all the not only the flowers and the sky, but the earth around. And I've never been. Was it Santa Fe? The ghost ranches and.
I think it was near Albuquerque. I mean, yeah, I every time I read that, I was like, I think they're talking about Albuquerque, but it's like
No,
the more
it's
Native
different.
American way of pronouncing it and spelling it, maybe.
Is which?
Have you been there?
Not recently.
you ever
I
been
went
there?
on a road trip where I went to
I think that'd be
some places, but I didn't actually go to Georgia O'Keeffe's ranch.
Yeah.
Definitely seems like perfect joy for Americana splendor. It's the Southwest. There's so much to love about the influences on architecture.
Mm-hmm. All the adobe and the stone and this rock and hills. I've actually never seen it, but through her paintings stand out in my mind.
Yeah.
For what the beauty of it. It's kind of like desert, you know. When I first went to Death Valley, it's kind of like, oh God,
But it's high though.
where I was here, and then it gets gets more and more beautiful, the more you just slow down
But it's a high plateau. It's like 5,000 feet, 4,000, 5,000 feet.
Very dry too.
how did she deal, do you know anything about how she dealt with the success? Or, I wonder if she was successful, so-called successful in her lifetime.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
She definitely had the feeling that her paintings were selling okay, and that she had like a sense about the art world appreciating her own merits.
So that's probably where Stieglitz came in handy.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of like connections, like being in the same art circles.
What would she do?
Going to galleries. and
Would she
stuff.
send it to New York? I mean, all these
Would she
paintings, would they like, put them on the train? Give me another batch?
I think at this point in her life where she was on Ghost Ranch, like she could just mail off things, but she didn't need to be connected through Stieglitz anymore. Like she was already able to talk to galleries on her own and people to like commission work or whatever. I'm not exactly sure about commissions, but yeah, she produced stuff and sent it off. But yeah, what I thought was sweet was there's a letter, or not a letter, but like a foreword of this book that talks about Juan Hamilton, and he came to stay with her, and it was a slow like relationship starting where like at first she didn't even like give him the time of day, but then they both shared a love of pottery and would make pottery together.
Wow, we were just talking about that.
I think there's something really beautiful about making pottery with somebody in your
That's such
little
a trip.
ranch.
Trip, you say that. Must be up. 'Cause I hadn't thought about pottery and my experience with pottery for I just hadn't thought about it in a long time. It just came up in conversation, and I thought, God, it was really, literally centering, learning how to centered me. It gave me something to hold on to through a really strange time of high school, where my classes that I actually attended trimmed down to like just 3 or 4 of my interests. And it was Berkeley at the time. But I had teachers that would bring books in, and that would strike me. They'd bring an art book in, or my sister's boyfriend that she was engaged to was really into art, and she would bring these art books, and it just jumps out at you. And then go up to Telegraph, it was so happy, and go to the print mint and just look through all the prints. Here, you want to look at one?
Sure.
Hold this
I
or-
love these pictures you put together.
Maybe I'll put
Oh,
it down for a
yeah.
little bit.
They're fabulous.
The pictures are great. Yeah, like that.
I've
The
never
last
seen
one on the
that
back.
one
Yeah,
before.
she's
Yeah,
so
God,
young.
no.
Oh,
Never
she's like a
seen-
Christina Ricci.
But this pose, this expression just
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But-
Part of the foreword, I read that her mom thought she was such an ugly baby
Oh.
that when company came over, they would put her in the back room.
No.
Oh no!
At least that's better than Hera. I just read about Hera in the Greek mythology, because I think Pan was such an ugly baby that she just dropped Pan. Pan, the god Pan. She just dropped Pan down through the clouds, but he landed in something that so it saved him, like water or something.
Oh, that's
There's all this
beautiful.
stuff in the Greek things where and it's so strange. But anyway.
I mean, Emily
Hey.
Dickinson's mom also thought she was plain. So yeah,
Just
like,
a plain wallflower.
Yeah.
She's beautiful, but what is she posing here? This is like
I mean, that's how I do
But
my
they-
button, like very aspirationally.
that's like a Hollywood. I just came. Anyway, but they did pottery together. Who did she do pottery with? Again?
Juan Hamilton.
Who is that?
The guy who
Juan-
put together that book.
Juan Hamilton.
But yeah, I mean, with some help for sure. But yeah, I thought that was really great because there's a sense of like knowing her and not necessarily presenting a retrospective, but like as the foreword says, something transitional where it's just like taste. Because yeah, sometimes there's just like collections that like proclaim to kind of like, here's the best hits and stuff, and it's just like, here's a slice of something, which is good. You know, a lot of like the earlier works that are very radical.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm gonna say, do we know anything about her background? Irish? Gotta be Irish, right?
Oh, you
Oh.
O'Keefe's. I don't know.
Keith.
It didn't come up for whatever that
Yeah.
was.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's interesting because yeah, I didn't read the Wikipedia this time. So
Wikipedia.
they're pretty great when they like talk about the fam. To be fair, like the last person that Emily Dickinson, like she comes from a family that had a presence in the community and a history, and so and like she lived on their estate, and so there's just like some people that are just more intertwined with their family. And Georgia O'Keeffe, she was just kind of like out and never really like mentioned it, was never an influence,
Maybe she was
less
really,
socially connected.
might have been really poor. Who knows? I mean, it was really hard for Irish people, you know, for a lot of time, you know, in places.
Well, they both too were defying all these expectations that what women do is get married, right? And have a baby or a bunch of them, and then take care of everybody. And wow, you know, to break those molds. I mean, at least she had that identity as an artist, so that would help a little bit. But I don't think Emily Dickinson had that, right? She didn't have a.
She was oddly self-possessed in the sense that when she wrote, she didn't write to get published, but to, you know, express something to herself and think to herself. But then also to write letters to other writers. So there was a sense of wanting to be known by some people for her ideas.
Totally.
Yeah, you want to make a connection. It's a good feeling to make a connection.
Wow. Huh. She know how to paint. Where'd she learn how to paint? Did she?
She looks self-taught to me.
I'm pretty sure she went to art school.
Art school. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
New
you
York.
got to go to art school if
Oh
you
my
can paint
God.
grapes. I know. Look at those grapes.
Look at that. Look at
It just
this.
knocks me out.
I was also admiring the grapes. It's definitely like a
Yeah.
test of an artist.
Oh, totally.
Like,
I mean, look at it.
it's
It
just like, sure,
jumps out at
you can do a flower, but can you do grapes?
Yeah, right. And these are paintings. It's like Raphael, and the different ones, the realism, but it's more real
It's
than
more
actual
real.
than the actual
It is.
reality. It's like
Yeah.
Hyper real.
it's hyper real. Hyper real.
Yeah, that's what is cool about Georgia O'Keeffe is that you don't really see blemishes in her work. It's
No.
just smooth bone.
Yeah.
Just,
Painting is so trippy.
yeah. But yeah, the book talks about like her crisp lines where it's like there's just like a stark line of white. And there's something really elegant I love about that feeling of just like piece of torn reality pasted on top. It's just the layer, it just feels flat and yet at the same time like it's just this naturalistic edge. Very cool.
Like, look at this, and it's oil. It's like amazing the way that everything kind of blends in. You'd think it would be watercolor to pull that off with oil. Wouldn't it?
So yeah, now in this point of the event, I usually open it up to people that want to share work that they've been working on, or you know, something they want feedback about, or just like, you know, if anything during this has made you want to share something, to go ahead and do that. Does anybody have anything they
Or
want to?
not. But I
go
want to
with?
ask what was going on when we came in.
Oh, I was ending a free write, so
You were recording them.
yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, so yeah, it's just the nature of free write. So it's pretty cool actually. For 4 minutes, I had the audience at home write about their favorite environment on the
Just
blank
now, over
page
the
in
phone?
the zine. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Well, it's live Facebook.
Right. But it was live.
Yeah. I mean, still, it still is.
It's still.
But anyways, so there's a cool thing about this, yeah, where it's like I'm gonna post it later, and so people can find it. And I told them at the beginning of the video that they could break out some paper and pens. So some of them have written about an environment that they enjoy, and there's something. And what I like about one of the characterizations of Georgia O'Keeffe's work is that they're environmental portraits. And so they're not landscapes, they're portraits. So there's something fascinating about characterizing it. Like there's a personality of
Like
the
that.
landscape.
Environmental portrait.
That's a portrait for sure.
Wow.
So like the same way with Georgia O'Keeffe's face and then in these photographs, it's just like you can see there's a lively idealization that comes out in the paintings where it's a feeling too.
It's not just pastoral.
Yeah, it seems kind of like it's staring at you.
No, it's the character.
It does like
Really
it's staring
character.
at you.
And the bones, too. The
Right.
bones.
But the real close-up ones of flowers with the pistils and whatever, and you can see the pollen. It's like I just feel like I always feel like I'm getting pulled in.
Oh yeah, yeah. They called it like an aperture.
An aperture.
I thought that was great. Like in photography, it's that little part in the camera that widens, and it lets in light into the film, and it's like it's more of just describing kind of like a gateway that opens in a circular way, because they also describe the aperture of the human eye, how the pupil goes bigger and smaller. It's the same concept. Oh my gosh, like I love the way that a mechanical aperture looks, where it's got all those little curved gates that slide in and out. Have you ever seen one where it's just like steampunk? It's so weird.
Yeah, it folds in how it's designed. It's probably the
Yeah.
Fibonacci series.
Yeah, the way
to
that
make
it like
it
slides
looks like-
against itself,
Right.
and it's just like,
to make a perfect
yeah,
round.
the way that you can hear a camera, that's the aperture sliding. It's cool.
You don't hear it on a digital camera.
Sometimes they have a
They have
sound, but
digital
it's artificial.
The little click sound, yeah,
Yeah.
because it doesn't go anywhere. But
I like that, where it's like it's important as a part of the experience. Like you can't take a picture without that
a
sound.
little sound.
Little
Well, I know
feedback.
there's for digital recording I love the patch. They have the guitar right, and then they'll have a patch which is only the sound of the finger sliding.
Oh,
You know,
fabulous.
and then you put that on the sound too to make it more realistic on a synthesized guitar sound. You put a little, yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty hearing me.
Yeah.
You're sounding good on this thing. Yeah,
I like
what
Oh
can
my
I say?
goodness, thank you.
And
It's baritone
did the other-
ukulele.
yeah,
It's a
did the other
baritone
guy come
ukulele,
and play
right?
guitar?
Yeah.
already?
From Hawaii,
That
right?
was here sometimes?
Practically, it's made in
guess maybe
China,
not.
but
Uh-huh.
it's branded like it's from Hawaii.
It's some of the
Wow.
events
Here.
It's got the Lani Kai logo up top.
Uh-huh.
Have you been to Lani Kai? It's super nice. It's a beach area.
What beach?
Lani Kai.
Lani Kai?
Yeah, it's where like Chinaman's Hat is. It's got like two little island features off the coast. I mean, that's all I really remember of Lani Kai. It's like the sometimes it'll come up in my Facebook feed, and it's just iconic. But yeah. Anyways, yeah, I'm definitely having weird feelings about it lately, because yeah, I've been thinking a lot about home and childhood. Fun fact, I recently learned about EMDR. Have you heard of this? Yeah, and it's been amazing, kind of like recontextualizing the past for myself and kind of alleviating some stress I have from, I think trauma is a strong word, but definitely like having experiences that I think about, and it feels haunting, and I'm like wanting to make a story that makes sense. But yeah, I like talking about it because it's really opened up my heart.
That's great.
But yeah, EDM art.
You've done sessions.
No, I've done similar things, but I like thinking about like the formalization of processes, and so it's like the writing that I've done where I've like recontextualized the past. There's like a way to do it with a clinician that might be easier than taking up writing.
To recontextualize the past.
So, for example, there might be like a flashback memory that you come to where it's like it feels like a seed of your growing like anxiety towards something, and it's just like you're working with this clinician, and they think about the negative cognitions that you have associated with that story, maybe what you did or didn't do, and so
Or didn't do.
they kind of bring up the memory for you in the sense of like tell you that you can change the details of that memory and kind of like awaken it in your mind, and kind of you're able to soften it by like remembering it in different ways, and this allows you to also insert a more positive cognition or like a brighter story about how, not necessarily a lie, but a sense of like how you are different now, or how you did what you could back then, and a sense of it wasn't your fault. I don't know, there's definitely a lot of approaches to making positive cognitions, but it's nice to have something that doesn't hurt so much when you think about it, because that it's one of those things where it's like if you have something that hurts you, it like creates a groove, and then it's just harder to shake.
I think mammals remember stuff. You know, go ahead, Mary.
I was gonna say, right, it's, to me, it's kind of like a story. It's like you have a story about it, but the tendency is for you keep repeating the same story, and it's missing. It tends to be focused on sort of the most dramatic part or whatever, the most stressful or horrifying part or whatever, and but it's not actually complete. It's what you're talking about. It's to have that story kind of become more whole. Do you know what I mean? To have other pieces to it. I had the same thing as an adolescent. I was a runaway, and so I had this habit of like telling these runaway stories, you know, but they would always be the same. I thought, I'm getting tired of my own story. You know, it's like, it's just, and there's more to it than just the same thing. You know what I mean? Going back over it, almost like a compulsion. You know, it's like compulsion. Tell that story that same way, and you know, to make it more whole. That's sort of the way I see it. And I think it's really hard. I think one has to do that consciously. Really work on it. Really, because otherwise it's like a habit, you know. But as an artist, you can actually, you can work on it in that way too, right? Georgia O'Keeffe, whatever she's up to. I mean, you know, that material's getting worked on in some way, and coming out through another, not through a narrative, not through words, but through pictures or photographs. Or it's always kind of envy artists for that reason, you know. But I don't know how much of that's my fantasy of what artists do, or whether it in fact helps to transform, you know, these kind of pivotal moments of life.
Yeah, and what
do
I
you think?
and what I read about Georgia O'Keeffe, she talks about how she wouldn't do anything unless she had an idea. Like she wouldn't just make something. It was very idea driven, but it was also very personal. And so she didn't really care about what other people thought. She wanted to capture something. The article that I read earlier is about like making the unknown known. And I think there's something fabulous about that. like the way that art can take something that is nebulous and something that is very emotional and very personal and kind of like display it for people and for yourself. And so when you look at it, there's a sense of containment, but also like acknowledgement, like it is out there now.
That's interesting. Do we know if she wrote stuff? Did she keep journals or any? Did she do writing?
Right.
Or is
So the nature of that book is that it has about 150 letters that she wrote to a variety of people, and some of them are really mundane. Like there's this one that I read earlier about how she saw these Christmas cards at the drugstore and felt like they were not patriotic because they were like of the Statue of Liberty and had some very weird pro-German propaganda. I don't know. I'd have to see it to make that call, but I thought it was funny because it had very little to do with her art and was just kind of like the stuff that you say to people in a letter. You're just like passing the time and you're just kind of like, I went to the grocery store today, or like the wind was blowing, you know. It's just very sweet, simple things.
Monday.
And that's, I think, really fabulous about letters and history in general is that people are going to dig up our weird Facebook posts and just be like, this is a person. This was their life. This is what they liked. This is what they wanted other people to know. I mean, I hope that's what happens to me.
Wow.
I think it's just fascinating.
So here we go. She says, I'm on the train going back to Steiglitz, and in a hurry to get there. I have had 4 months west, and it seems to be all that I needed. It has been like the wind and the sun. There doesn't seem to have been a crack of the waking day or night that wasn't full. I haven't gained an ounce in weight, but I feel so alive that I am apt to crack at any moment. That's pretty descriptive.
I always get that feeling on the train. All the anticipation of going somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like a transitional moment. And it's just like got nothing else to do but feel like cracking. But yeah, I love those little moments where it's just like, she's a very plain writer, which is nice. Yeah, I liked reading it because it just felt like she didn't feel any obligation to be poetic or necessarily like group things in paragraphs or try to over-explain. So there's a certain sense of just a humble, here's my thoughts kind of deal.
Well, thanks for pointing that out. I didn't know this would be a great example of, in words, the story that she sort of tells about herself. She lived to be pretty old, didn't she?
Yeah, she was saying in one of the letters about how she would tell people that she was going to live to be 100, and then she started telling people she was going to live to be 120 just to make sure she got to 100. Or like that, where it's like as you get older, you're like, I think my body's going to want to like stop before I get to my goal, so let's just stretch that goal. Yeah. No, my mom says it all the time, where she's just like, I'm gonna live to be 100.
Your mom does.
And
That's so great.
Yeah, and I mean, it's fine.
Were we just talking about people that...
I was just like, I hope
Was that you that was talking about people that live to be
100. The oldest person.
Oh yeah, no, you guys
recorded
were just talking.
was 116.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
If there's somebody still alive who's going to beat the record because he's 116 and more months than the one who. They both come from Japan.
It's just bizarre that it comes up in conversation. Everything seems to happen in pairs. Totally unconnected, but everything's connected like that. Yeah,
I always say this about synchronicity, is that what you don't notice, you don't notice.
What you don't notice. It's all
So
synchronistic.
So right, like everything that comes up is just everything that you've noticed coming up. Like people have been saying that word that you don't know, and just when you start to like learn the word is when it comes up, but it's always been around.
but what is this about? You know, and I mean, I just have to bring it up because it started happening again. But for a long time, it was happening all the time. Every time I looked at the clock, it was balanced, you know, numerically.
I often get the 11-11 one. That's my favorite.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm serious. It would be 4 or 2, and I know it's kind of like cliche because you hear about it, but it really was happening for a long time. And I get the 10-11.
One of my favorite things is there's this book called Gödel Escherbach. It's got a bunch of cute little mathematical paradoxes and quips. One of my favorites is that there's a paradox that there is no like first uninteresting number, because like the first uninteresting number would be interesting in being the first uninteresting one. And so it's just like numbers are fascinating because you're gonna look at the clock and just see a pattern anyways.
Yeah, you tend to see a pattern anyways. But it's really clear when it's balanced. Fibonacci. 1, 2, and then 3, and then 5. So 8 is the first even number that's equal like that. The magic 8.
Do you know at the restaurant around here?
Oh yeah, sorry to not
It's
mention
fun.
it earlier. It's up that
It's
way.
an adventure.
Oh my gosh, it's not that bad. I mean, it's better than
No,
it was the first time
bad?
I went. So yeah, it's up the stairs.
Yeah, I was
and
saying
you go
that's
through the
good.
door, then take
An
a left,
adventure
and then
is
another
good.
left. You'll see it.
Yeah,
Adventures.
yes.
You know, I have to say, I love to hear when you extemporize stream of consciousness. It's really fun. It's just,
Yeah,
I was
no,
telling
I love the
Mary
way
about you,
describe
just describing you a little bit, just you know, not really particularly, but the way you, it's beautiful. You're articulate. You got a great example. It wasn't any, it's just a stream of consciousness. You do the same thing. All people do tend to do that. I love that. It reminds me of like when I was younger, my parents had lots of friends. They loved to have friends over for dinner, and then afterwards they'd be talking. And I would often just I realized that I would just listen. I learned so much just from listening and the random stuff. And then they'd laugh, you know. But you know, there would be people that would just ramble about stuff, and then they'd crack up.
Yeah.
That's how you learn about the world. Just random conversation that you might be privy to that you find interesting.
Yeah.
Which was a lucky thing. That was one of the benefits of being one of the younger kids of 5 kids. Because the
Right.
oldest kid, a lot of times, they just want to not be around.
Right.
But I ended up being around a lot of adults
Yeah.
that were communing.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting time. The 50s, Bohemia, KPFA.
True.
Berkeley.
But you speak about the things you speak about. I mean, I find them meaningful. You know what I mean? So they really stick. There's
like
a lot
that.
of talking that's kind of like,
There is.
oh God.
No, I
please.
know.
It's just kind of,
I know what you mean.
blabbing. It's like blabbing.
My sister was on the phone the other day with my nephew, and I love her, but she started talking about her like paying off her mortgage, and I was just kind of like, I'm so glad that worked out for you. And I didn't say that, but it was just kind of like they were very excited about selling their house and then like paying some of their mortgage off and then having another thing, and I was just kind of like,
Oh my God.
my nephew's 12, so it's just like I was with him where I was just like, oh, like this used to be about me. This is my birthday. This is my birthday call. But suddenly we're like, no,
It
this
was your
isn't
birthday
wrong.
call.
I mean, their birthday call, but my nephew's birthday call.
For his birthday.
Yeah, turned
Your
12.
What day?
Wednesday,
March.
March 6th, I guess, yesterday. But yeah, it's super fun. I like that feeling of like being 12. What an age.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally. Oh, I experience it too firsthand often in my world. over
I
the
was
last
really
20
smart
years.
back then. I imagine, you know, my nephew Taylor's really smart. Just that feeling of like, this is
You
your
got
peak.
it figured out.
Like this
'Cause-
is when you're in school and you're learning a bunch and your brain is super
Right.
sharp.
But yeah, but still though, there's something that clicks where you look at, you know, the adults can seem mysterious at 6 or 7 or whatever, but something all of a sudden it's like, oh man, got that figured out. Yeah, I see it. Yeah. then things happen. I don't want to really.
But there's something
I
about
don't
being
wanna know
conscious of what you're saying, and that's, you know, I've been reading quite a bit of philosophy lately. I was curious about, and this one part where Spinoza basically says, you know, people, they need to just kind of, you don't have to kind of like say everything out of your mouth that comes into your head. You know what I mean? So, in fact, it's kind of good to put the, you know,
Put the kibosh
censoring-
on.
Yeah, put the kibosh on some of that. It's kind of like that moment with the 12-year-old on the birthday or whatever. It's sort of like, that's not what it was all about, right? Going
Yeah.
into the mortgage thing, it's like,
To be fair, I'm not good on phone calls. I get really judgy.
you get what?
I get judgy. I'm just kind of
Judgy?
like, why are we on this phone call? Like, how come no one's like eloquent and prepared and just like, why are we staying on topic? Where's the agenda?
Uh-huh.
So yeah, no, that's why I like texting because people are way more efficient.
Mm-hmm. And focused, yeah.
It's just like, give me the address. We don't need to make pleasantries about your success.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
That's
no.
good observation. Wow. How do you pick your person? So Patti Smith, Emily Dickinson, George O'Keeffe.
William
This is
Blake.
great.
I like that William Blake one.
For the record, that was part of
For the record.
a different. It was Patti Smith, so she was inspired by symbolists, and so I put in William Blake work into that zine, but it's not for her.
William Blake was the same night.
No, I'm saying I never featured him, even though I featured his work. It was in support of another person. Yeah. But yeah, so when I pick people, I go for people that inspire me, but there is a great tendency and pretty much just like absolute like pattern of them being women, and it's just part of that feeling of equity is that we don't need to mention men. They get plenty of airtime, and so it's kind of like bringing it back up and being able to say, you know, like, let's talk about these people. It was great to like introduce people that never heard of Laurie Anderson, and it's just like all these people that kind of get shadowed by their male partners, or you know, just like too late in the game. Like Yayoi Kusama is only just getting recognition, though she's been
Who?
making art. Yayoi Kusama.
Yo-Yo Kusama.
She's a famous Japanese artist. There was this documentary I saw recently that hailed her as being the most famous commercial artist. But I think that's mostly because her latest installations are very Instagrammable, and so people have been going in droves to see it in museums. And so it's interesting how they measure commercial success, though it's still like to be on the heartbeat of what art audiences are looking for is very important, and so that's success. But yeah, check out that documentary. It's interesting because she was in New York at the same time as Andy Warhol and those peeps and made art, and they would steal her ideas and they would be all famous and stuff, and she was like literally driven mad by that feeling of being overlooked because she was an immigrant and a woman, and went back to Japan and made work there, and still like she waited a long time to get really recognized for her own work. But then when she did, like she travels the world, and like all that stuff, the MoMA having handbags of her art and stuff like that, like that is like success, mainstream success as far as anyone can hope for while they're still living.
Mayuma Oda, have you her stuff? She's actually in the Big Island now. She was up in Bodega
Oh,
quite a long time. And
I'll
I think
have
she
to look
was
her up.
Gary Snyder. She was hanging with Gary Snyder, you know, the poet. He's still alive anyway, but her stuff seems to be so popularized. It's like
Was that the
quite
Big
a-
Eyes woman? Sorry, no, that's
Huh?
something else.
Yeah, no, Big Eye.
I know her because she went to Hawaii after, like, she got famous.
Uh-huh.
And so.
The one that did the children with the big
Yeah,
eyes?
yeah.
Keen, wasn't it somebody
Yeah,
Keen?
it was probably.
Yeah.
But either way, oh my gosh, yeah, that was quite a movie. They did a dramatized movie, and it was very ridiculous. I'm pretty sure it was directed by Tim Burton.
Well, isn't that what they do
Should I
to
watch it?
people in art
Yeah.
school? Don't they?
I'm gonna watch it anyway.
Sort of teach you how to paint, but then the whole idea is you're
All right.
supposed to like develop your style. And so
I'm
then
okay
you just
with it.
repeat it ad nauseum, like with the big eyes and everything.
It's an interesting thing about commercial success, where it's like your label wants you to keep making the same music because it sells. So there is a bit about being a sellout, but it's also like it's just art market. It's very annoying, but also like I don't know, collectors. Yeah, they just want more of what they've already got. So there's a certain kind of nature about art that I don't trust, where it's like when money gets involved, it skews the original vision.
That's right. It does. Right. Right. It's well put. It's well put. This is my Yama Otis. The same thing. Her earlier stuff is really beautiful. Really beautiful. And then later on, it's like it's all made to put on the walls in hotels.
I'm the only one who I've heard use the word skewed in a long time.
Once I called a customer persnickety, and he was so happy.
What about
That's a
Wappy
great word.
Jaw?
I never called a customer that.
Well, they can't be Wappy Jaw. That's how you describe a table that's off balance
I would
or
though.
something that's not working.
I work at a coffee shop, and some people
know you
are
do.
really weird.
And you're so kind to everyone.
It's awkward because
It's
I just
incredible.
tell them like what I think sometimes.
Are you sure?
And then I'm like, but don't mind me.
I'm just here. This is her too?
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorites. Yeah, she's very like poised and older.
And I see what you mean about the Japanese influence almost in the.
Yeah, she has a lot of like austere outfits.
Yeah.
And it's very fabulous.
Yeah, whether she was stern, who knows? But there's like,
Yeah.
it's definitely seems like no nonsense. This lady
But
could
yeah,
really
it's
dish it out.
sure,
She
and
felt
she
like-
and people would if you would let an image dictate how you might describe somebody, you might say that lady's stern,
Right.
but she might not be at all. That was
She
my
might not.
experience with friends, also old friends of my
Right.
family. They have the hatchet face, but then
Yeah.
they'd just be cracking up. Their
Yeah.
personality would not go with what they look like.
Yeah.
But I mean, she looks a little stern.
Oh, naturally, yeah. It's very interesting seeing so many photos of her, and she's got a very soulful approach to being photographed. That
Yeah.
it's just like, you don't need the cheesy smiles. You got something else going on there. Makes you think about what you're thinking about,
So do any other mammals think about their past a lot? How you were talking about, you were checking on your past.
I think
things that-
some dolphins do.
Dolphin, I mean, like dogs will remember things that have happened to them, right? Because they'll see somebody, and if something
Yeah.
nasty had happened,
Yeah.
when they see that person again, they'll like.
Yeah, they
Right.
remember.
But Eckhart Tolle was like, because it makes me think of okay, now, being in the now, not always carrying all your baggage with you. He always used the example of the geese. one geese flies into another, and they're tussling, they're really going at it. They're like, and then they both go apart from each other, and that's it. And that's it's like nothing ever happened.
Right. Right.
It's like there's no grudge or
Yeah.
anything remembered.
Oh.
But maybe
That's-
is that just lack of intellect?
Welcome. What time is it?
It's getting late,
Huh?
Something.
Wait a minute.
8:05?
The guy that was sitting over there.
8:04. Yeah.
I'm the guy.
Oh, there is still somebody. Yeah, God.
Okay, so I have like a last call. Does anyone
Okay,
want to
last call.
share anything that they're working on, or get any feedback about any ideas that they've been mulling over, or have an opportunity to read some poetry that reminded you of Georgia O'Keeffe, anything like that?
Wow. That's
wrote a nice poem the other day.
Oh, wow, it was green. I come from the Midwest, so I still can't get over
You
it.
should read that for us.
These hills here with no trees. I
I'd
actually
like
no
to
trees
hear
on
it.
these. Anyway, it was beautiful.
It was a text, right?
Yeah, right.
If you don't mind.
No.
Because I was just flashing on it that when you said you were talking about creative people, and I thought, oh, you're so creative. And this poem you wrote, let me see.
The river, you know, in the hills now, the little rivulets, the water that's coming out. I love it. Doesn't last for that long. And the newts, you know how they close the road here for newts? I never heard of a place ever anywhere where they would close a road. So the newts in California, you know, newts could get across the street to Maine. It's just like, wow, it's pretty cool.
Is that somewhere nearby?
Yeah, in Tilden Park. Yeah, there's one road there. It's always this time of year. And have you ever seen them? You know, they're kind of brown and they've got these beautiful big eyes. And then it's hard for them. Have you seen them? Getting across the road, you know, down
Little
to the creek.
Lizards with pink bottoms.
Yeah,
And so they close the road because they go out of the water to mate.
yeah.
I don't know where it is.
I think I emailed it. It's on
Why it's
email.
Anyway. No, it's,
Yeah, one thing that I've been thinking, I like your ideas on this, because I'm trying to get these young people to remember turning points in their life, right? But to remember them with the vividness of when they actually went through, you know, through a turning point. And across the board, everybody was saying, you know, from retrospect, there's a tendency not to, you know, to kind of really smudge out the painful parts and to kind of not to remember the transition part, the part that would, you know, one didn't know where one was going. It could be terrorizing. It could be, you know, intense. I'm wondering if that's more of a universal thing. That, you know, once you get through something that's really harrowing, that you kind of smudge out the really harrowing part and tell the different story. You know, the story's a different kind of story.
I read this really amazing book about trauma by Janina Fisher, and it talks about the fragmentation of the psyche, and essentially we like leave behind a person during trauma, and our brain splits, and there's like a certain sense of like those memories are shared between you and that other person who is also you. And so the nature of it is learning to talk to these people who are people of you in your past,
these other yous.
and being able to kind of like listen to them and acknowledge their pain. And there is a certain like gentleness that will allow them to relax and feel more safe with you and essentially share their feelings of what happened. That might be the extra side of the story that you've been missing.
Interesting way to look at it.
I think it's a really great compassionate way
Something.
of appreciating essentially amnesia, where there is like a repression of things that are like so bad that our brain didn't want to think about it because we just wanted to get on and live. So I've been loving that feeling of kind of coming back and picking them up and essentially saying that the danger is over and we can remember hard stuff now. It's an amazing book because it contextualizes people who have had a hard time as being adaptive in a very creative way, and that they're not broken, but they do need to heal. So, it's been allowing me a lot of like compassion for myself, because it's so much easier to take care of someone else sometimes. And so like imagining the little parts of just being other people is easier than to tell myself I'm worth it. But yeah.
So yesterday I saw the most beautiful thing. The kind of thing that makes the bells in my heart ring. The young boy was drumming on the stacked cookie tins. Two toddler hands in time with the grocery store din. Random voices rhyming with the cash register chiming. Oh, beautiful mothers standing alongside listening, as I listened too with eyes slightly glistening to the sound emanating outward from the place deep within. He heard the song of the muses and his heart and soul joined in. Two alley rocker hands on the stacked cookie tins, slender fingers in time with the grocery store din. Oh, beautiful mother alongside, never a whisper, hush, hush. No scolding the front, no stern shush, shush. Yea, rather, her countenance said, play on, young drummer, sparkling gem of my heart. For of this sound symphony of life, we all play a part. Aw, I know. It was one of those moments in the line in the grocery store.
Wow.
And the kid just started going for it, and and you could just see the mom going, "Stop!" And the guy at the working the cash register was like, "Where's that sound?" Because he couldn't see the kid.
Right.
He was around at Trader Joe's. But it was holiday, so all the metal cookie tins are all stacked up, and he was just going for it. And that's my poem about it.
Wow.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for
This is
sharing.
a cool little thing you do here, and it's such a cool old space in Oakland that you open up for people.
It's a great bookstore. It's one of
Yeah.
my favorites because it's got a tight curation. It's like Trader Joe's where it's got like the good stuff. So you can pick anything off the shelf and read it and
What did you
enjoy
call
it.
it?
It's
A
gonna be
tight-
good. Wow.
tight
Wow.
A tight
Curation.
curation.
Tight what?
A tight
A
curation.
tight curation.
Right, because it's a small bookstore. So they
Curation.
don't have like, bad books, in my opinion, obviously.
Whatever.
But yeah, I like
Did you know
to read.
about this place before?
No, I'd only heard of it.
Uh-huh.
Haven't been here before.
No, I've never heard of that.
So
Yeah.
thank you for.
Anyways,
getting
I'm
me
going
out
to do some closing remarks.
Okay, yes.
Once again, thank you to Ian Wolfman, who always lets me use their space for my events for free and being so conveniently located. And also to all my attendees and people at home, I like keeping this event open to the public and a great opportunity to share something that I've been interested in and inspired by, and it's people in the past that have great stories and different disciplines and amazing insights into how we can live today. And I'm always open for collaborations or ideas about how to make this event better. And also, if you have somebody that you want to learn about that kind of fits in the same progression, and that's just another way of saying I'm only gonna do these events based on female artists to kind of help that balance, but also tell stories of amazing female artists. And I'm not sure what the next one is gonna be, but if you follow me on Facebook, I'll let you know when that comes up. But I'm also on Instagram and kind of on Twitter. But anyways, once again, thank you everybody, and have a lovely night and a safe drive.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Will. What's your name?
Pat.